This audio reading is from the book John Ploughman's Pictures by Charles Spurgeon. Our selected reading is Chapter 3, Hunchback sees not his own hump, but he sees his neighbour's. He points at the man in front of him, but he is a good deal more of a guy himself. He should not laugh at the crooked until he is straight himself, and not then. I hate to hear a raven croak at a crow for being black. A blind man should not blame his brother for squinting, and he who has lost his leg should not sneer at the lame. Yet so it is. The rottenest bough cracks first, and he who should be the last to speak is the first to rail. Bespattered hogs bespatter others, and he who is full of fault finds fault. They are most apt to speak ill of others who do most ill themselves. We're very keen our neighbour's hump to see. We're blind to that upon our back alone. Even though the lump far greater be, it still remains to us unknown. It does us much hurt to judge our neighbours, because it flatters our conceit, and our pride grows quite fast enough without feeding. We accuse others to excuse ourselves. We are such fools as to dream that we are better because others are worse, and we talk as if we could get up by pulling others down. What is the good of spying holes in people's coats when we can't mend them? Talk of my debts if you mean to pay them. If not, keep your red rag behind your ivory ridge. A friend's faults should not be advertised, and even a stranger's should not be published. He who brays at an ass is an ass himself, and he who makes a fool of another is a fool himself. Don't get into the habit of laughing at people, for the old saying is, hangings stretching and mockings catching. Some must have their joke, whoever they poke. For the sake of fun mischief is done, and to air their wit full many they hit. Jesting is too apt to turn into jeering, and what was meant to tickle makes a wound. It is a pity when my mirth is another man's misery. Before a man cracks a joke, he should consider how he would like it himself, for many who give rough blows have very thin skins. Give only what you would be willing to take. Some men throw salt on others, but they smart if a pinch of it falls on their own raw places. When they get a Roland for their Oliver, or a tit for their tat, they don't like it. Yet nothing is more just. Biters deserve to be bitten. We may chide a friend and so prove our friendship, but it must be done very daintily, or we may lose our friend for our pains. Before we rebuke another, we must consider and take heed that we are not guilty of the same thing, for he who cleanses a blot with inky fingers makes it worse. To despise others is a worse fault than any we are likely to see in them, and to make merry over their weaknesses shows our own weakness and our own malice too. Wit should be a shield for defence, and not a sword for offence. A mocking word cuts worse than a scythe, and the wound is harder to heal. A blow is much sooner forgotten than a jeer. Mocking is shocking. Our minister says, to laugh at infirmity or deformity is an enormity. He is a man who ought to know a thing or two, and he puts a matter as pat as butter. Who ridicules his neighbour's frailty, scoffs at his own in more or less degree. Much wiser he who others lets alone, and tries his hardest to correct his own. This concludes Chapter 3. Thank you for listening.